Welcome back, everybody. My pretties. How's everybody doing? Good. Hazel, this part of the Arena Talks, we get to dive deeper into things that came up, things that were shared, maybe questions that people have for our unique group that's here, right? Is there anything now that you've had a second to settle after you spoke, by the way, to be courageous and share the way that you do the work and show up in your life that enables you to show up for others so powerfully is the stuff. Thank you. That is the currency that allows you to trade on doing good and invest in those around you so it doesn't deplete you. Powerful. Is there anything that you want to particularly elaborate on or explain or reiterate or underline?
I think one thing that I would want to elaborate on is the idea of speaking to your pain, and maybe we'll come back to an exercise like that, but I definitely want to answer some questions and then we can come back to that.
One thing that's great about Hazel is she will keep it real. It doesn't matter if you or me, she works beside you or with you. She will keep it real 100%. Who's had a transformative experience with Hazel that has benefited their life? Who's had multiple? Who's wanted to be pissed or gotten really upset with this woman and went there with her? And it's been good. Good.
I noticed my husband never raised his hand for any of the payment.
Speaking of hubby, is there anything you want me to ask or bring up or help put up? Okay, doing good, huh? Okay.
We are the complete opposite of each other. I am center stage and Brad is behind the curtain. But I need him there to let me.
I'm wearing my hard work pays off pink for you, hot pink. How has hard work paid off for you when it comes to doing your work?
I would not be anywhere near where I am today if I was not doing my own work. Opening my own business and just it's scary and it's hard to walk away from being here and being an employee, but to feel this call and this pull to do this work untethered, no insurance bossing me around telling me what to do. I think if I had not been doing my work, I wouldn't have found experiential therapy. And if I hadn't done the work in experiential therapy, it would just be this thing that I went to and I learned and I kept to myself. So
what does, so that's the work part. What does magic mean to you? And how does that show up in somebody's recovery?
I think magic is something that Shay and I joke about. If you know Amy and I joke about that. Maggie, we joke about that. And we joke about it because there's a realness to it. So we talk about big magic. I talk about Maggie having deep magic. If you know Maggie, there's a deepness to her. And I think the magic that we are always referring to is the light and the truth when you step into yourself, you are in your magic and you are creating around you and it creates space for others.
How are pain and magic connected?
100% connected. I don't think that you can step into yourself if you are avoiding the pain, right? I would not know. So people don't know this, but I only discovered experiential therapy last April.
9 months or something like that, yeah.
Shay and I, Amy, we all went to this training for it. And I thought that we were going and we were going to hang out with a bunch of people we liked for 4 days.
Learn some stuff?
Yeah, learn some stuff. And As you all know, that is not how experiential work happens. And I think 2 hours into the first day, I'm crying. I'm dysregulated. I have to leave the room because I'm crying so hard and I'm in the front row and I'm like, oh my God. And I just remember feeling so exposed, so vulnerable in front of all these like peers and coworkers and people that I wanted to emulate. And here I was like falling apart out in the hallway, not being able to breathe and shaming myself the whole time. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I can't believe you're doing this. Get back in there. I come back into the room and I've like composed myself, and Amy is sitting off to the side. Amy's another one of our therapists here. And Amy looks up at me and she does this. And of course, when you're like barely okay and somebody else to it, you're okay. And so I kneel down next to her and I'm like, I can't breathe because I'm crying again. And we go outside and she has this huge smile on her face. And she's like, I am so excited for you. And I was like, why? This is terrible. And she like, because you will not leave here the same person that you were walking in here on. And like something about that, I was like, yep. And I'm going to be here all the way these next 4 days. And I was, and you saw it in all these different things, but it is the work that you have to do in order to live and keep stepping into your magic and the beautiful life that you're supposed to have.
I said that to somebody just today as we were finishing up and we were talking about, okay, this is how we're going to do the work. And I said, I'm so excited for you. And it's one of those, wait, are you really excited for me, or do you know how? Well, I do know, and I know. Speaking of that place where you are around people you want to impress, and you transform this, if you guys experience this crying, and you're crying, and you're crying, or maybe you're not there yet, but you know you need to cry. One thing I can relate really well, like deeply to Hazel, is it's change or fucking die. That's the attitude. And when she changed it from crying to quit to crying to win, then it didn't matter. She didn't look at people around her as, what are they gonna think of me? She looked at people around her like, they're here with me to do it with me on the way. Like, instead of I'm a part of. When you allow yourself to be seen, how does that allow you to engage with pain more purposefully or powerfully?
I think when I allow myself to be seen, I am not so afraid of the pain. I think when we allow ourselves to be seen and allow ourselves to be witnessed and allowed ourselves to be held, I find that our ability to sit with pain is greater. We experienced some of that today at the Women's House, to hold somebody in pain and to witness their pain and to say, my pain sees your pain and honors it. And the ability then to be the one who is being witnessed. Like, your ability to walk through pain grows exponentially, and like your life is like infused with love and support.
All right, so we're gonna dive into some questions, and one of the things I wanted to ask you as we were talking is, now looking back, how do you see the dots that it connected that led you to the next step, to the next step, the next step? And the question here, and I think this goes back 2 years for you, when did you feel you wanted to take the journey to be a SUDC, and do things still come up for yourself as you counsel others?
Yeah, so I started off here as a life coach, and I had never done any coaching. I'd only done like 10 years sponsoring, which is similar but very different. And so I felt like very unprepared and insecure. I grew into that and sought coaching out for myself, sought mentorship out for myself. And I realized that I wanted to have more of an impact. Not to say that as a coach, I didn't have a strong enough impact, but as a SUDC, I get to run the group. I don't have to be the coach in there. I get to decide what type of group, right? I get to decide, if coaching is more, the way we use coaching at IAM is more forward thinking in your life. I wanted to be able to impact people going back in a way that helped to propel them forward. And so being a SUDC gave me more opportunity to do that.
For sure. And the great thing about the recovery skills that you guys are acquiring and that we all acquire at this juncture is they will always pay it forward, because there was a time when enrolling in school again and becoming a SUDC in the year plus it would take felt totally impossible. The most inspired and daunting thing ever, right?
Yeah. I hate school. I hate it. Like, I went to college for 1 year, came home, didn't like it. I've gone to college a lot. My kids were actually wasting on this before. I don't have a degree. I do not have a bachelor's degree. And right now I have zero desire to do that. I don't think that I need that in order to tell me if I'm qualified. Getting the SUDC certificate and completing that program was the fastest, easiest way for me to step into this. And obviously, I've kept growing and kept learning.
Have you found, for anybody you've worked with, that inspired action always serves them with where they're at?
The inspired.
Yeah, so when they have the inspired action, like, okay, SUDC, it wasn't it wasn't a degree or whatnot, but this is the next step for me. As you connect people with their inspired action, have you found that it always serves? Like, we say this all the time, your body always knows the way.
Yeah. I think I try to instill people to trust themselves and to think bigger and to not be afraid of that next step. Or not be afraid of the steps down the road, but to take those initial steps. You all have a purpose. A lot of us come into recovery, we start working in recovery, and we believe that part of our purpose is working in recovery. And it may be your purpose. It may not be, but it may be. But I want you to find a purpose, because living that and following it and watching that unfold and trusting yourself and trusting God to open that door for you, you're not staying sober if you're just hanging out, right? It's not worth it.
It doesn't feel as good as actually going to that place of pain and purpose and progression, I guess. Right. One of the books that I've read, or the things that have called me, is this book called God, Women, and Food. And it's about your relationship with food, and everything you know about God and yourself and life is on your plate. The woman who wrote this is about kind of her connection with spirituality, and this is the woman who wrote it. She gained a bunch of weight and lost it, over 1,000 pounds by the time she was 30. She then proceeded to lose $1 million, and it's about how she came back from that. And as she was embracing that with her husband, she said, "My husband, Matt, and I lost almost every cent of our money in 2008. I was terrified. Then I was ashamed, and then I panicked." As I wrote the book Lost and Found, upon hearing my financial news, my teacher, Gene, said, "Nothing of value was lost," to which I replied, "Now is not the time to be spiritual." But I soon realized that just as I had a choice with food to suffer or not, I had a choice at that moment as well. When your family moved here and the obvious solution to your problems was money, financial means, and you chose to really delve into your spiritual connection, inspired action, how has that helped you engage with the pain that's necessary to become you?
Yeah, we got to know pain really well when we first moved here. We moved in the middle of COVID. We used to live in the Bay Area. We used to make a lot of money. My husband had been laid off right before the shutdown happened, we knew it was coming. He got this big severance package. And we thought that we would take that money, it would give us some time, and he would be able to find a job that didn't require him to commute 3 hours a day. We lived 22 miles from his office. It took him 3 hours round trip. And so we start praying and thinking maybe there's something more for our family. And we start talking about Utah. We kind of talked about it before. My husband's didn't grow up a member of the church, so Utah is not this place that he's we should go to Utah. And we felt like it was the right thing. And we moved here, and we thought we are doing what we believe God wants us to do, that there's something else here for us. And he came here, and we were like, okay. And there was nothing. It was the middle of the lockdown. My husband works in technical recruiting. Nobody was recruiting when they were furloughing and laying people off. We went from making all of this money to making no money. No money. My husband would drive DoorDash 10 hours a day under my name because he was still collecting unemployment out of California. And I went and I got a job at Hobby Lobby for $10 an hour. And you can look at me and tell, I'm not the Hobby Lobby. I love Hobby Lobby, right? I love it. But you can look at me and know that that was a lot of humbleness to go from that lifestyle that we were living and who I believed I was and what everybody thought about us to unloading, this massive truck that came in every Wednesday, pushing dollies of craft shit around and doing it, and people yelling at me you need to run back after you drop it off. You need to run back and go pick up more. And I just remember being what has happened to us? What has happened to our family? And it was a dark time for my husband and God, and it was just hard. And I'm so grateful for that job because I met Jared right before I went to work at Hobby Lobby. And I asked Jared when I met him if he was ever hiring. And he was like, baby, call me in a month. And I go and I work at Hobby Lobby, and our life is rough. Our families are helping pay for our rent. We're getting help from the church. We can't pay our health insurance. It was so hard. And a month passed, and I was like, hey. And that was some of the worst pain that we have been in. To watch our kids suffer, to watch my husband suffer, to wonder about our faith, to wonder, where are you, God? Here we are, and this is harder, and it's getting worse. That pain was the portal to all of this and where I am today. All of it, right? I took that. I leaped into this place. I met Shay, I came in and I had an interview, and Jared and Chris were like, why don't you come in and teach a third? And we'll see how you do. And me, this has to work out, this has to work, please, this has to work. I hope let them like me, let me do as well. I came in that day and I was so, shaking. And this was in our old office. And Shay is, standing there in the old podcast room. And I walk in there, and, Shay has this energy all the time. And I don't know what it is for me, but, it grounds me every time. And I see him and I go to him. I barely met him. And I'm like, hi. And he's like, hey, how are you doing? How's it going? And I'm like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing this group and I'm really nervous. And I start crying. And I think I hugged you. And Shane was like, oh, okay, we're hugging. And I even saw you open the door, just so it wasn't weird. And you were like, you've already won. It's already worked out. And you came and you sat in that first group. And I didn't run a group. All I did was go in there and share my story. That's all I did. And, but I shared it the way that I know how, which is vulnerably and authentically. And Chris saw it. I can't remember if Jared was in there, but you saw it. And it was like, this is the place. But that pain was the portal to.
So if I were to go in and ask you, and the reason I bring this up is so many, I come across somebody that says, well, I'm doing this recovery thing, but I just need to get a job. And then, things will start working out well. Well, money does not solve recovery problems. Recovery solves recovery problems. Money solves money problems. And spirituality, if you can solve the spiritual problem, that's core to you, then you're aligned. When she said at the beginning, when this and this and this are aligned, there's nothing that can stop you. It will all work for you. And if I were to say then nothing of value is lost, does that have meaning for you?
Nothing of value is lost.
When you had that pain of feeling and there was nothing in the bank account compared to what was, did you find a place where really the stuff that matters wasn't lost?
Yeah. I think our spirituality, while there was some anger, there was some doubt, I think for me, my spirituality grew during that time because I thought, if I abandon God in this, I'm fucked, right? I couldn't figure out quite where he was, but I felt him. And I think the frustration was, then why aren't you showing, opening doors, doing all this stuff? But I got to know him really well. And so for that reason.
In fact, the pain puts you in a place that the only place left to be is to be with yourself.
Right.
All right, and part of my research for today is, I don't know if you've ever read this book, it's Thich Nhat Hanh, it's Anger. And he talks about getting close to it. Have you read this book?
No, I know him though.
Wow, powerful.
Of course I
Well,
know.
what? Duh. From not being surprised to the first part in being with your anger, Thich Nhat Hanh, his recommendation is to chew your food 50 times before you swallow it. From what you know about your relationship with food and yourself and anger, why would slowing down your eating help you engage with your anger in a more powerful way?
That's so good. I think that idea of chewing your food 50 times, what I take that to mean for me is to become very intentional with my eating, which is what I've really had to do lately, right? I would live on coffee, a 100-calorie granola bar for breakfast, and maybe one more during the day, and then 2 rice cakes with sun butter and honey, and that is what I would eat on the regular very recently. And so I have started to become very intentional with what I'm eating and to start to look at the ways that food nourishes not just my body, but food nourishes my family. And if I love and want to nurture my kids in a way that I was not nurtured, I have to feed them.
The way is food.
And that felt so bizarre to me because I thought I was nurturing them, but I was not nourishing them. And so to become more mindful of what is going into my body and also becoming more mindful of all of the feelings that I have around eating more food. It's like a lot of feelings. I get like very anxious. And to just let those be and to become curious and to become an observer to them, right?
Was that painful to be highly restrictive in your calorie intake?
I should say yes, but no, it was never painful. Like I used to feel powerful because of the pain.
Yeah.
Right? I had this like weird sense of like power of I can feel hungry, like fucking starving, right? That's like not a lot to eat. I could feel hunger and I could feel like I was starving, and I would be able to say to myself, inside goodness, I won't be hungry, right? Because I can withstand that. I'm stronger than that.
Powerful. And then what happened with anger? Did anger come out then? Or as you have become more mindful and intentional with your relationship with food, have you found more peace?
I think that I never considered myself an angry person. I think that I can be anxious and uptight, but I don't think of myself as an angry person. And as I do this other type of really beautiful therapy where we kind of go back and do some inner child work. And what kept coming up as I would go back to these earlier ages is anger. 4-year-old Hazel sitting in her bed, so angry. 6-year-old Hazel from this experience, like so angry. And in this other therapy, it's a lot like experiential, but it's all like guided imagery. And so my therapist would be like, get mad. What does that 6-year-old need to do?
Hey.
Does she need to like destroy something, rip something up? And it was always like, I needed to like like anger. Like I took a knife, took a knife to like my couch, my parents' couch, and just destroyed it, pulled all the stuffing out of it, went to my mom's car and just like, destroyed that, scratched it all up, busted out the windows. And this is like my 6-year-old doing that. And like, I'm not an angry person, but that anger lived in me. It had never been let out. Wow. And I was controlling the anger by controlling the food. But that doesn't allow it release.
That's big. Yeah. And so then it was a relationship with, well, your inspiration guided you to go to this place that is intimidating deeply. And the more you engage with it and just do what comes out of it, it resolves. You find peace. Yeah. Okay. Has anybody read You Are a Badass? Have you read this book before? It is legit. There's a chapter in there called Millions of Mirrors. And it says, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. The people you surround yourself with are excellent mirrors for who you are and how much or how little you love yourself. Has that been true for you? And as you've allowed the mirrors to reflect back and see them, has that helped you get to know yourself?
I think using other people, those mirrors, to tell me who I am, I've done that for so long. And there are never enough mirrors showing me enough good things about me to make me believe that, right? The more I look in those mirrors that others are holding up, I keep coming back like I'm still lacking. But when I am able to look in those mirrors, not looking for the reflection, but I now am looking at them.
Wow.
Challenging them of, what do I see? I know who I am. Let me see her. Let me witness her. I think that's been a huge shift.
Do you guys understand that distinction? Would you mind repeating that?
Mm-hmm. Read the quote again. So
the quote is, and so it comes back, a lot of your purpose from your pain has been that no one can make you feel inferior without consent. That's from Eleanor Roosevelt. And that's been a big part of yours, of feeling worthy no matter what. And it says, the people you surround yourself with are excellent mirrors for who you are and how much or how little you love yourself. At the end of the day, it's not about them. It's about you believing you are worthy of being loved and seen for who you really are.
So again, like my point there is, if I look to other people to define who I am and to define my worthiness, I've had so many abusive, awful, soul-crushing relationships in my life. I have had, this eating disorder. I've allowed myself to be used and...
Who can relate to that, by the way? Soul-crushing relationships.
And I am let those things mirror back to me my worth, right? This piece of shit who I know deep down this guy is a piece of shit, and he is treating me like I am worse than, that must be true, right? Like that must be true. And so allowing other people and their actions towards me to dictate my value, right? That's just me going to these mirrors, this altar of like, am I good enough? Please tell me, am I good enough? And I think what I've really been able to do is to take those mirrors out of their fucking hands and to hold one up for myself and to say, I am not afraid to look in the mirror and to see exactly who I am. All of me. All of me. The good, the bad, the light, the dark. I am willing to look in this mirror because I want to know. And when I was able to take that mirror out of all of their hands and hold it for myself, that's freedom. Peace.
Does anybody have any questions on that? How does Hazel, so when the water is running, you can't see your reflection, but when it's still, you can see your reflection. How does this active, energetic Hazel, who at times also been very anxious and just wrecked with guilt and grief and unknowing, how has she found a way to regulate and be still so that that reflection, she can see it and the beauty and all of it, actually, not just the beauty, but all of it as it is? How have you found a way to be still?
Myself to be still, right? I am not a still person at all. Right?
You can relate to that, huh? Okay.
I found out as an adult that I have ADHD, and I'm like, that explains a lot.
Yeah, that reads.
And there is like scariness in the stillness.
For sure.
I know you can relate to this. Like when you are just with you, you are just with you. There is no other distraction. And that is a very unsettling place sometimes to be. And I just had to very intentionally and through like guidance and mentorship from people in my life learned how to be still, right? I've recorded these self-talks, which I could do a whole arena talk just on that, of rewriting messages that I want for myself and being still enough to wake up in the morning when I'm still lying in bed and just put this recording on of me telling myself what fucking badass I am and how I've overcome soul and how, you know, I can overcome things. And I have this whole thing. I am still to listen to that. I'm still in the morning when I'm getting ready and I allow that to play. When I'm driving in the car, I play that before I listen to my other music. Like I have to force stillness in a way that I can do it. I am much more able to like meditate and practice some of that today. But sometimes it's finding stillness even in the, you know.
And that it's a practice, and that it's the coming back to the mirror and holding up or coming back to yourself is where the magic and the possibility and the painted purpose actually happens, huh?
Absolutely. And I have to sit with her. Like, her is my authentic inner self. Like, I have to sit with her if I want to know her, right? I have to sit with her and hold her in order for her to feel safe.
And how is your practice of honoring a higher power, I mean, for you it's Jesus, how is it bringing a higher or something greater than you into that stillness allowed you to see who you are more authentically?
So that's part of what I did, like the last day that I did this intensive. I wasn't going to share that. But I hold this eating disorder as this like precious part of me. And she had me do this experience where there was a chair representing me. There was a chair representing my eating disorder. I talked to it and told it all the ways that I have loved it, all the ways that it has served me, and all of the ways that it has caused me to lose myself. And then I reversed into the role of the eating disorder and talked about all the ways that it tries to destroy me, how it wants me to feel less, how it wants me to lose sight of all these things. And then we had a chair for my higher power. And there was this chair representing Tungun. And there was a scarf on that chair. And I sat and reversed into that role and talked about what I see. I am Jesus, what I see in Hazel, what I want her to know. And what the words that came out of me in the role of Jesus was, how precious, how beloved I, Jesus, see Hazel to be, and yet how helpless I am to show her that, because she has to give me her suffering. He will not just take it from us, right? We know that scripture in the Bible, I stand at the doorway knocking, waiting to be let in. He stands at the doorway knocking and only me to let him in. He will not just relieve my suffering. He has the power to do that, but he respects my choice and my free will enough that he must wait for me to give it to him. And so I had this whole experience of picking up the scarf that represented the eating disorder. He's so afraid to let it go. So afraid. And like knowing how it destroys me and affects me, and yet like, what am I gonna do if it's not here? I don't know. Like, I'm so afraid of who I am without it. And so, you know, like I do in Experiential, she's playing some like beautiful song. I like take the scarf and I wrap it up, the eating disorder scarf, and I wrap it up in this beautiful white scarf that represents Jesus, and have this like beautiful moment and this like surrender that I had in that moment of, I cannot carry this. I will not carry this anymore. And I know that if I don't give it over to you, I will try for another 40 years.
Thank you very much for sharing that. What is something your parents didn't teach you that you'll pass on to your children?
They taught me all the things. I think one thing that I try to do with my kids is I want them to know that they are each my favorite. Like, I want them to know that I love them so much. And that's a hard statement for me to say, because it's not that my parents didn't do that, but I didn't feel that. And so with my kids, like, I feel like I suck them up in so many ways I don't know yet. But like the one way that I am very clear on is my kids know how much I love them and how beautiful I see them.
Which is what drives you to live a beautiful life yourself, is to lead by how you live. What tools will you use moving forward to not want to continue your eating disorder personally?
Continuing to do the work, right? Continuing. I meet with a nutritionist. I meet with a different therapist. I do this work. And I know how to do recovery with alcohol. The eating disorder is harder. It's more like incestuous, like it has such far-reaching tentacles that are different, but it is only by continuing to do the work. I don't want to fall into the place that I hope none of you fall into, which is I went and did all this work in Florida. I've been doing this work with the nutritionist. I've been doing this work. So now I see things different. I'm good. I can commit to this eating plan and I will be good. But no, that is not how freedom works.
Or joy, or badassery, or love, or being alive in your life, or any of the good stuff.
It is continuing to work.
Who feels like they shut down a little bit, like, really, there's more? I do. And thank God, because now I know that on the other side is joy, love, possibility, the things I want, the experiences I say that I'm not enough of because I don't have. The precious, when you're describing the precious, to now switch it as an external thing to an internal thing, that I am precious, and feel it in a different, more profound way. Now nothing can take that away from you in this whole life experience. It will always be with you. What is the most meaningful way for you to sit with pain, and how do you stop yourself from numbing and stay present? So what is the most meaningful way for you to sit with your pain?
I think the most meaningful way that I sit with my pain is through meditation, or sometimes like meditation, like on a chair, on my bed. Sometimes it's meditation in the shower, and it is like a question to myself of, where does it hurt? And I sit with that, and I think about that. And if that hurt could speak, it would say, what to me right now? And as I just sit with that hurt and I sit with that pain, what I try to come answer with after I've allowed it, I come and answer it with, and what do you need? And the answer is love. And sometimes it's just self-love. Sometimes it's like, I need to feel the love from God. I need to connect. But it is always, where does it hurt?
Who now can see themselves doing that in their own heart of hearts, in your own private space of allowing your body to feel pain and then give it a voice? Who feels like that's revolutionary for them? It's for me. Wow. And so how do you stop yourself from numbing and stay present?
I go and I eat fucking breakfast that I said I was going to eat. You know? Because for me, that's like the numbing out. So, and it doesn't always look great, but I sometimes there's still that 100-calorie granola bar, but I make sure that lunch is not the same thing, even if I really want it to be.
Is that how you mark your progress? Is it just not the same? It's you surprise yourself with some novelty going forward.
And what I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to honor that little 4-year-old Hazel. And so I'm trying to think of, what does she want to eat? I will tell you, I've not had ice cream in 3 years. And like, I think that's like, I'm proud. I looked up that, like, who eats ice cream? And I think to myself, when I was in Florida, I was like, I think she probably wants ice cream. And so I got a milkshake at dinner. by myself. I'm like eating a salad and I'm drinking a milkshake. And I'm doing it to like honor her. And I feel anxiety about drinking the milk.
Big time.
For sure.
When you were at that place with that milkshake, did you happen to notice your tattoos of remembering and what they meant?
I did not. I should have.
Instead of, I haven't had ice cream in 3 years, bitches, to, you know what? She really likes ice cream and it just feels good because it tastes good, and that's what it's about, is feeling good. Yeah. So it's interesting because the next question is, how do I reach out to my inner child after so many years of blocking out so much of those memories?
I think for me, one of the ways that I was able to connect with her the most was through this beautiful, beautiful meditation. And the meditation was, I'm driving in a bus and we're going somewhere. And the bus pulls up to this beautiful wheat field. And I get out and I start walking through the field, and it feels beautiful and it feels warm, and I feel the sun, and I see the wind through the wheat. And up on the top of the hill are a row of trees. And I feel drawn to this. And this was a meditation that somebody guided me through. And at the top of the hill are these trees, and I'm drawn to it, and I want to see what's at the top of that hill. So I walk up there. And as I'm walking up the hill, I hear the sound of children playing. And I can't see them, but I hear it, and I'm curious. So I get to the top of the hill, and on the other side of the hill, I see these little kids playing, throwing their ball back and forth, playing, laughing. And I recognize one of these little girls. And she's 4 years old. And I recognize her, and I see what she's wearing, and it's a dress that I have a picture of myself in. And that little girl stops playing and looks up at me because she recognizes me. And I call her up to me on top of this hill, and I think, come on here. She comes up, in all of her little, sassiness. And I ask her how she is. What does she do? What are you doing? And she tells me how she's been playing with her friends and what she's been doing. And then I ask her, how are you really doing? How are you really doing? And she looks me in the eye and she hesitates because she doesn't know if she can trust to tell me how she feels. And I look at her and I say, you can trust. I want to know. And she sits here and she tells me how she really feels. And I let her talk, and then I watch her get kind of antsy, and she wants to go back and play. And she runs back down the hill, and she turns around one last time to look up at me. And I get to tell her one more thing. And what I tell her is, I see you. I will never stop seeing you. I will not abandon you anymore. And she looks at me and she kind of shakes her head and then, runs out to play. And I walk back down through that field of wheat, and I get in the bus, and I'm with me again. And that was how I could really feel her and see her and understand that she was hurt, that I had hurt her. I had caused her to feel like it was up to her to handle all the stuff. She didn't know how, and so she didn't trust me. And now I ask her what she needs. I was just telling this to Trevor. to write a letter in your right hand or your dominant hand to that younger self, that inner child. What do you need? How are you? What's going on? And in your left hand, your non-dominant hand that engages a different part of your brain, answer in that hand as that little child. And you just wait for them to tell you what they eat. And you can respond. And again, this whole idea, this whole therapy cliche of like inner child work, that is where the work has to happen. If you cannot or are unwilling to go back and get in touch with that inner child and feel that version and reparent them the way they never were, because you yourself can do that today. If you are unable to do that, then that inner child is the wounded soldier that you sacrifice to like handle all of it. And she deserves love. She deserves somebody to hear her, somebody to protect her. I would say that's one of the biggest gifts that I
One thing I have deep admiration and respect for Hazel that I've gotten to see over years now is in this information age, knowing more as you have learned or know does not get you that feeling in that life that works. It's the knowing with doing. So it's not necessarily about what you know or how much you know. It's that you act on what you're inspired by, what you are learning or do know. And that's something I do have mad respect for Hazel, is that she has practiced acting on the inspiration that comes up and trusting that it's like it will work for her and not against her, that things are always working out, that it's done. Now, who practices gratitude and it feels like it falls flat? Like I say, all my gratitude, my gratefuls, but you're feeling like, and so what? Sometimes, right? A gratitude practice that's not thriving, if it's not leading to trust, then that's where it's not generating the goodness in your life. So gratitude should lead to, I trust that there's a plan, that there's a source, that there's a God, that things are working out for me, that this is for my good and not my ill. Then the trust allows you to act on that inspired action with some knowing. And when you know, the more you do, you're at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. And more often than not, it's going to be in the small things. Say hi to that person. Say sorry. Show up on time. I mean, I remember a time where the big thing was being on time. And now it's building a business. And so whatever it is in front of you that comes up, the more you do and act on that, that gratitude should be like, oh, look what I do have. Look, we don't have all the money, but I have this deep spiritual connection with God. And it says if I have God and He's with me, like nothing can, and nothing's impossible. Okay, I trust you. Like, let's go. And I want miracles. Let's see them. And you're willing to like let it come. It's that trusting and knowing of acting on that. So if inner child work is like this thing, you're like, go inside that stillness and find a place where you just need to take the next action that feels better, feels more connected to that deeper self. Would you say that's okay? All right, so I got a question for you. In You Are a Badass, Jen Sincero says that, I just love this, that you cannot think your way out of a problem that you acted your way into. You have to act your way out of a problem you acted your way into, okay? I can't think myself better without some action to be different, right? Now, do you feel like how long you drank has had a bearing on how long recovery has been, or is there some correlation or duration? How much work needs to be done based on how long you were in it?
I mean, I drank for 17 years. That's a long time. I started drinking in high school, and I think I was like 16 years old in the days. And I drank until I was 34 years old. I was still that 15 or 16-year-old. Like, we emotionally stop progressing and developing at the age at which we started our addiction. And so I was being a wife and in a marriage as a 16-year-old girl who really felt like nobody got her and who was entitled and just pissed off and like selfish. So it took a long time to grow myself up from that. I think that the length that we drink or we use, I think it's significant. But if we are all super honest, like the drinking or the drug was just like, it was just like the coping skill, right? And so really it's that how long was that void there even prior to picking up, right? That impacts your recovery because it's like, how long do I have to go back and start to look at these wounds, you know? And I promise you, you have to look at all of the wounds if you want to stay sober. It's not like, okay, I stopped drinking and like, now I'm good. Nope, you have to look at all of the wounding that led up to that.
What does surrender become to mean to you?
Surrender is like, you think of the movie Braveheart, and you think of like those battles that they fight in that movie, and they are fighting for their freedom, for their families, for everything that's important to them. And I think of the look of a soldier on battle like that, and just the like fatigue, right? And like the weariness. And the surrender comes after exhaustion. And the surrender comes after you have done and tried all the things to not lose the battle, and yet you're still losing. And so surrender to me is like this, like, and it's just like laying it out. Like, it's not an I give up. It's a like, I just can't carry this anymore. So I lay it down.
Do you feel that's more about with the process than moving against the process?
Meaning I have to do
the recovery process. Do you feel like now it's when you surrender that you're with the recovery process instead of against it, or?
Sometimes I'm surrendering because I've been against it. I've been fighting it. I surrender still all the time.
Absolutely.
I shared this really big surrender I had with like this eating disorder. It didn't come easy. Like I was trying to figure out all the ways to try to manage it myself before I finally surrendered. So I find surrender comes in desperation, and it is like the biggest gift. Desperation, when I hear people with that desperation in their voices, I'm like, tell you, if you had this gift, desperation is great.
Yeah, because when it's a hell yeah, you get shit done. And when it's a hell no, you know it's not the right thing at the right time. What does manifesting come to mean for you?
Like my thing lately. I believe that we all have a purpose. I believe that our lives have taught us to live small. Our lives have taught us to think small, to believe small, to think that we are not worthy of greatness. And I refuse to believe that lie anymore. I manifest greatness in my life. I manifest success in my business. I manifest success as our family, freedom for us. And manifestation takes faith, but it's more than faith. It's like I have to do it, but more importantly, I have to believe that it is coming to me, right?
Well, for you, it's moved way past believing. It's a knowing now, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, which when you do the work and you trust yourself, you just know. And when you know, you just go, and it just happens.
And I find that when I manifest something, I am much bolder and braver, right? Like the income that I'm manifesting for this year is like big. It's big.
Well, when you manifest, you probably feel more aligned too. It's just who I are.
There's like that doubt that wants to come in, but I'm like, who says I can't do that?
That's right.
Right? Look what I've done so far with his help, with God's help. Like he desires to bless me. So why can't I manifest this thing? That scares me.
And excited?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the question of what helps you when you know your thoughts are what they are when you know they should be better. Okay. This is from a book that you recommended that has been powerful for me. It's in the middle of a lake in a boat. It says, the loss God allows is always the loss God uses. This is why suffering is not an interruption to what God is doing. It is what God is doing. How God meets us and molds us in our suffering is not a lesser work. It is God's greatest work, the work of helping us become who he created us to be. So if you found that the loss you perceived or that you experienced in making peace with your eating disorder is the loss that God uses for more abundance or to complete you or bring more of who you are to be.
I think that...
Because at the heart of pain is the loss. We think we're going to lose something, right?
I think that... How do I want to say that? I think that what I've learned is that God does not cause the suffering in our lives, but I believe he can use the suffering in our life. He can use it to mold us if we let him. He can use it to shift us. He can use it to invite us to come to know him. Like suffering, we think we come to earth and we are shocked when things are hard. Right? Or we get sober and we're shocked. We have like shit still going on in our life. We're shocked. Oh my God, why am I doing this? Yeah, this is part of life. Life is hard. It is not achieve, overcome, and like skate by, smooth sailing. Life is suffering. But there's a line from The Princess Bride that like, life is pain, whatever. And that's like, I don't say that to be discouraging. Like this.
I think it was more like, life is pain.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, for me, like the human condition is to live in a world where there's sickness and hardship and suffering and hurt. And in that, I can still find myself. In that, I can find him. In that, there is a purpose. And so when I can shift how I look at the suffering and the pain in my life, then I'm not the victim. I cannot live my life as a victim and think that my life will be big and either to me. You were made to feel great. You were made to be glorious, to let your light shine so bright that it's almost blinding. That's what sin has gifted you with. And suffering sometimes is the way through that.
Are we complete? One more. What is the specific light that you see yourself giving in 2023? So we have our own gifts and talents and your unique light that you're saying we can be blinding. What are the lights that you see yourself giving abundantly in 2023?
I think a couple of them. I think that I'm going into 2023 very sure of who I am and very boundaried, right? Very aware of the boundaries in my life. And as I am boundaried, protecting my energy, protecting my needs, my light can shine brighter because it is not fluid and I'm not letting all of it in. And so that's been hard for me because I used to think I want to be so authentic and vulnerable. And so I'll share all these things so people think how real I am. And that has not honored myself. And so I can be private and still share. I can have a boundary and still be giving, right? So that's one of the things that I'm going into 2023 with, and that I'm willing to like grow and go through more pain.
Get some. Well, for somebody who wanted to stage all to themselves, you did not let us down. Thank you for bringing and giving it. And like Thor's mom said to him, we all fail at being who we're supposed to be. The hero in us comes out when we are who we are right now. So thank you for being who